Welcome to another edition of iAccelerate Remote, where we talk to founders of companies who are undergoing change and especially being challenged by the current COVID crisis. So today we have actually two people who are representing as founders of the organization Hidden Harvest, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about what they do and also what the challenges are about.
Yes, of course. Thanks a lot, Omar, for having us. I'm Beryl France. I am the founder of Hidden Harvest. And for anyone who doesn't know what Hidden Harvest is Illawara's volunteer-run food waste education initiative. Together with a passionate team of over 20 volunteers, or I potentially could say activists, we combat climate change by providing the tools and forks to tackle food waste and serve up a more sustainable food future.
Yeah. And Oliver?
Yeah, my name's Oliver Batten. I'm the social enterprise manager at Hidden Harvest. So I got involved with Hidden Harvest about 3 or 4 years ago as an active volunteer originally and did a bit of cooking as a chef for a little while. Yes, have since gone on and worked outside of Hidden Harvest in a bunch of different organizations, but have come back on board in the last 6 months, in this role as social enterprise manager to assist in shifting from a purely volunteer-based model into more of a social enterprise model where we can start generating a bit of revenue and become a bit more self-sustaining.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because we have 60 businesses under our roof at iAccelerate when we're all in, and about 4 or 5 typically are self-proclaimed social enterprises. A lot of people don't really understand the terminology, and a lot of people think it's that means that you're a not-for-profit or you're certainly or you're a charity. Can you distinguish about your model and what a social enterprise is, or how you're running your social enterprise, and what does it mean to actually be doing that versus maybe a more charitable model?
I think it's really important to state that we've actually been operating for 5 years as a volunteer-run organization. And as a volunteer-run organization, we actually have achieved a significant amount. So I guess one of the things that I didn't mention before, but we work with food that would have normally gone to waste in close collaboration with markets and groceries at the end of the day, or bakeries, and we get food that would have normally gone to waste and we actually serve it, I guess create food experiences around that food that provides our audience with the experience to see, taste, and potentially even feel what this more sustainable food future looks like. Over those 5 years, we've diverted a significant amount of kilos of food out of landfill. We've done that with an amazing amount of volunteer hours that without their efforts, it wouldn't have been possible. And at the same time, over those 5 years, we've educated, or we actually say we socially activated a significant amount of people. So while that's fantastic, that for the longevity and sustainability of this organization, we need to shift towards a more sustainable model. And we have identified a social enterprise model as the way to do that. And the responsibility that comes with running a space requires us to move away from being volunteer run. It was always the idea of like eventually transitioning to a model where we would be able to pay a number of people that still could work with a number of volunteers, but really move away from being solely volunteer based, because I don't think that's sustainable for any organization, or at least not in the way we are working. If it wasn't for COVID, we might have been able to transition slowly but surely into the direction of making that work.
So it's interesting that the model that you settled on was to say, well, we need to make some money to solve some of the problems, including retaining good staff and doing some of the things more consistently, and that. So you moved away from obviously what was more volunteer and almost more charitable model, and now you're saying, no, you know what, we should be able to generate some revenue to actually do the things even better. So yeah. Oliver, if I go to you and say, okay, now you've started down that journey, and as Beryl was talking about, but now you've gotten something came out of literally nowhere for all of us and for yourselves. And so what's happened, and how have you responded as a result of that?
Yeah, being a social enterprise and looking at a social cause of food waste, and it's an issue that impacts our entire community and our world. It was really important for us to reevaluate when the whole COVID-19 situation happened and look at, you know, how we can still address this, you know, social issue, but also, yeah, in the current working environment. And one of the key elements to that was bringing our community together. And that's something we've always prided ourselves on at Hidden Harvest, is bringing our community together over food. And so we were actually pretty lucky to, just before the COVID sort of situation hit, we launched our Hidden Harvest community Facebook page. And that was sort of a platform and an avenue for our community to basically inform us of what they were doing to tackle food waste and what they were doing in their own home. So rather than us providing information to them, it was a platform for them to share and from us to learn from them. And we've actually really seen that grow quite significantly, particularly through this COVID-19 experience, where people seek that level of connection and interaction with other people. And so that's been really great to sort of see that flourish during this time. But obviously, with our sort of business as usual and practices, we, as Bill said, we were running out of a space on Crown Street, and we had a number of events locked in, community dinners, you know, brunches, and we were trialing a sort of cafe restaurant style of space as well. So that all had to be put on hold, and, you know, chatting with our customers and, you know, putting a lot of those projects on hold and shift to see what we can deliver online. And from that, we've seen some really exciting things. So we've actually launched our new website a couple of weeks ago that has a blog and information on what we're doing uploaded onto it frequently. But we're also running online workshops weekly, with another one coming up this Saturday, where people can jump online and cook along with some of our Hidden Harvest warriors, Jackie and Ray, which is really exciting, and we're seeing a lot of engagement with that as well. But as I said, we sort of want to champion and empower our local community to you know, still consider food waste during this time, whether they've panic bought and have way too much food and are going to throw a lot of it out, or you know, they're getting quite low on food because, you know, the supermarkets are empty. So to be able to get creative with their food. So we've been sharing a lot of our community stories on our socials, on our community Facebook page as well. So yeah, it's been going really well.
Yeah, so it's interesting because in some ways the problem has really disrupted some of what your plans were. But on the other hand, I don't think people have thought about food as much as they have more recently, mostly because they can't access the same places where they used to. And as you say, shortage of food, also shortage of money if you don't have the same income you had before, and access. Where do you go to get the food? I mean, I think a lot of people that I know are more concerned now about shopping, or, you know, where's the food coming from? How's it being handled? All of those things. So how is any of that maybe fundamentally changing? Some of it you might want to just say, well, this is only a temporary, but Verbal, how many of the things that you've learned now or that have impacted, do you think will now change your model forever? I mean, that will now make you rethink how you will go forward from here.
It's quite a critical time actually for us. We actually already identified May 2020 as sort of a time, a critical decision point, because our lease was coming up for Crown Street, for the premise that we were working out of. And so I guess it's really tricky to extend a lease for an for an operation that is currently not operating, because we obviously can't be serving food or creating an environment where people are coming together with larger numbers. I have to admit that we're not completely sure what's going to happen in this space, but at the same time, I think it is a really amazing time to actually rethink what we're doing. So maybe this is a good time to move away from that premise and actually say, look, we've got some time to plan and to really do some business modeling and go bigger and better.
So Oliver, what's changed immediately? How's your day, or what you're doing, focusing on the different parts of the business? What has actually fundamentally changed in what you're doing every day now?
Yeah, so, well, obviously, like many, we're all working from home. So our meetings are all virtual, but we do try to keep up to date with each other quite regularly. We do have quite a fun and energetic vibe at Hidden Harvest, so it's good to try to keep that up in a virtual space. But yeah, as opposed to a day-to-day, we're actually using this time as a reflection to, sort of look at our roles and how they're shifting in this virtual space, and sort of, I guess, making updates to our organizational structure and sort of what our jobs actually look like, and sort of redefining them, and what we can, so that we can be effective and make the most of this time. But we're also using this time to do a lot of customer discovery. So I think like pre-COVID-19, you know, you spend a lot of time in your operational day-to-day, you know, running our space in Crown Street and hosting all of these events. Whereas now that that's sort of been, you know, taken away from us, we're trying to capitalize that on using this time to delve deep into understanding our customers and how we can support them during this time, but also, you know, what they want to see from us after the COVID-19 situation. So yeah, we're doing a lot of customer discovery and in the process of that, and are looking forward to sort of discovering what those findings are to sort of build Hidden Harvest into yeah, something new and exciting once COVID's over.
So if you're talking to another founder who was just starting on their journey, because you guys in some ways have been, you know, doing this for a number of years now, you're changing as you're growing. What's a piece of advice would you think you could give someone else who's just starting out and has been faced with this amazing sort of, you know, obstacle called COVID-19? And I mean, what skill or understanding that you think you've gained just over the last few weeks that you might want to pass on to say, look, if you're just doing this now, just, you know, keep this in mind, or some word of wisdom you might be able to share with someone who's it was just confronting this for the first time.
One of the biggest things for myself is that COVID has allowed me to step out of the operational space and actually more in a strategic space. So prior to COVID, I was dabbling, trying to do both and potentially not excelling in either, because just trying to do too much in a space where I obviously also have another job. And I think what COVID has enabled me is actually just solely spend time in that strategic space. So my piece of advice would be stop. It's like stopping and reviewing what you're doing is so important. And if you, yeah, and I think we've all heard it before, but you just don't realize till you actually stop that you can just keep working in a direction that may not make sense. And I think that would just not only be a waste of your time, but your passion that potentially could make something really creative, awesomely happen in another direction. But if you don't look up, you just will never know. And I think it's so common amongst founders as well, because that was the direction that you thought we would be going. And it is sometimes hard to see change when you're just all things, like all wheels going ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, when the world goes into a pandemic, it can be a bit of a downer sometimes. And, you know, you are faced with a lot of challenges, but using the time to reflect and, you know, if it has freed you up for a little bit of time, you know, being proactive with that time and finding things that inspire you and invigorate you again, I think is really important. I think that comes from reflection and taking a step back and realizing what you're doing and, you know, is it still in line with what your passions are? But I know certainly Berbel and I have done that and put together a bit of an inspiration list of, you know, other businesses that are doing exciting things and things we want to aspire to keep us motivated during this time when we aren't getting sort of that energy from, you know, interacting with other people. It's important to, you know, check in with yourself and make sure you're working towards your own sort of goals and aspirations.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I think for everyone, and we've heard that from other startups. I mean, it is almost the forced pause that you would not do on your own. So that creates that opportunity to really rethink and to re-engage. And I think for startups like yourselves, who seem to have such energy and positivity about what you're trying to do and what you are doing, it can be a real force for good and for good change for yourselves.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your insights. I think this will be very useful to others who are going through it or thinking about what that might be the challenges that may lay ahead. So thanks again, and we'll hopefully see you through or see you in person in the next few weeks. Okay.
Yeah, hope so. Thanks, Omar.
Bye for now. See you. Okay, bye.